The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live from the radio studios of WFAY and WMRV, Androlonis Media presents Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
Well, everyone, good morning and welcome to the Carolina Cabinet. I'm Peter Pappas. I'll be your host this morning. We are proud to be the only homegrown conservative talk radio show in the region, and we know this is the smartest hour of radio. Our job is to give a voice to the conservatives of Fayetteville, Cumberland County, and beyond. You're listening to us on WFAY 100.1 and the River, WMRV 106.5. This morning, I'm happy to welcome host of the Cabinet, Pastor Joshua Goodman, returning.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning,
Pastor Joe.
Joining us at the last minute, Ms. Carrie J. Good
Carrie
morning.
J.
Good morning. And Bishop J. Antoine Miner.
J.
Sexy. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. And welcoming Chief Kem Braden, retired. Good morning.
Braden.
Chief.
Yes. Thank y'all for having me.
We should play the Chief song. You know, all hail the Chief.
All hail the Chief. Well, look, as we dive into our show, we appreciate you tuning in and spending time with us this morning. Please take a moment to like, share, or follow us on Facebook. Look for us at thecarolinacabinet.com, and you can find links to our shows and how to listen on your favorite podcast broadcaster. With that, don't go far. We'll be right back.
Since 2012, Joshua Goodman has been the senior pastor at the Cliffdale Christian Center, a dynamic church and ministry located in West Fayetteville. Join our friend Pastor Goodman for a podcast or a live sermon in person at 6427 Cliffdale Road. Now, for today's good news, here is Joshua Goodman.
Well, good morning from the All-American City. This is Pastor Josh, and have I got some good news for you in a time when so many want to unpack, talk about, and discuss all the problems, circumstances, and situations, all of the negative junk. I'm here to bring you some good news. Hold on to your seats, friends. Did you blink? Because the summer is almost here. I cannot believe it. For me, at the Goodman house, this is a really busy year, too. My youngest daughter is turning 18. She's graduating. Her and my youngest son have proms to go to next week. Proms, birthdays, graduations parties. The next few weeks are packed full of fun. You know, if you don't know, my wife and I have nearly raised six children. And one of my greatest joys is as they grow older that they become less children and more, well, friends. One of my greatest joys is when my son comes over and he visits, and there's a point in every visit when we find ourselves sitting around the dinner table, lost in conversation, just talking and hanging out, and literally this has gone on into the wee hours of the morning. The topics can range from everything: food, movies, politics, faith. I love these times together. You know, it kind of puts me in mind of our Heavenly Father. Did you know that He likes to hang out with you? You can meet Him at church, but you don't have to. You can meet Him in your car or your backyard. You can meet Him in your easy chair or at Lake Rim Park. Summer of 2025 will be here and gone before you know it. Take advantage and live it. I mean, really live it. Spend time with your spouse, your kids, your parents, your friends. But don't forget, spend some time with your Heavenly Father also. He's waiting, and He'd really like to spend some time with you. This is Pastor Josh, and that is your good news.
The cancel culture is not welcome here. You're listening to the conservative Carolina Cabinet, Eastern North Carolina's most offensive talk show to the freeloading left.
And good morning and welcome back to the Carolina Cabinet. How's everyone doing?
Woo-hoo. I told you, dude.
It's good to see everybody back.
I'm hot and ready.
Studio. Hot and ready?
Hot and ready.
Oh
like
my
Little
gosh.
Caesars.
What's the price?
Don't ask him.
Is it still $5 hot and ready or did
No.
it go up?
It went
I
up.
think $6 now.
Like
$6?
$6 and $7.
$6 hot and
Yeah.
ready?
You can't even get a $5 foot long no more.
Hey, Carrie, you're looking nice today.
Yeah, looking
Lovely.
lovely.
I like the perfume.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we got a lot to cover today. We have a special guest, but we always do go around talk about what we've been doing. I'm gonna go first because mine's
baby,
quick.
go.
So
Go.
last week I went to the Chamber Prayer Breakfast, which
Yeah.
Did you pray?
How'd it go without me?
it was not wasn't the same,
Yeah.
Josh. We
It
need
wasn't
you.
the same.
We really need you.
Did
But
you-
you would have
did you
would have
pray?
loved it.
I
though.
did.
Okay.
I
You
would've-
would have loved
I
it.
did.
Yes, it was it was a
Peter
good
prayed.
worship time.
Even,
Really?
Even
Yeah.
Jim,
Peter
even Jim
prayed.
went,
Yeah, Manna
and he
does a
enjoyed
great
it.
job.
And we had the Lord's chicken.
Yes. Yes.
Got to say that was pretty good. So we had that. We had the radio show. I went to a couple baseball games in the last week.
Oh, shut your mouth. You gotta bring me. You gotta
Enjoyed
bring me.
all of the fruits of Fayetteville's labors.
Yeah.
You just got to go and enjoy
Dude, you
this
gotta
stuff.
Why
bring-
didn't you bring me and Josh to the baseball game?
I'll bring you next time.
Yeah, you got those seats, dude.
Well,
Yeah.
Peter,
And-
you owe me a
Oh,
date.
there was a nonprofit night, right?
Yeah, to
there
the
were
ball.
several. I don't
There was
remember.
Oh, okay.
Date
Date.
this and that. I don't know.
Yeah,
yeah.
because I was talking with the guy from last week.
The guy.
Mr. Gobrick, John
Mr.
Gobrick from Our
Yes,
Community Salutes.
From Our
Okay.
Community Salutes.
You
and
had
he
me
said
for a
he
second
had-
there.
Yeah, Mr. Joe Gobrick.
Yeah. Okay.
So Peter, you have to take me to the ball game, but I'm going to do what black people do. I'm your +1,
Okay.
but I'm gonna invite a +1,
And that'll be me.
and that'll
Okay.
be Josh.
Well, how about we just get a box?
Yeah, let's do
Let's,
it.
let's do that.
All right.
And a box
so,
of chicken.
So the last thing I want to mention is just local GOP news for a moment. There is a beach house raffle if y'all want to buy a ticket.
I do.
It is, let's see here. Where the hell is it? It's for a week in June to July, through July 4th, actually.
Wow.
And I think it's $25 each ticket or $5 for $100. Somebody's math works out on
Yeah.
that. I don't know. But $100, you get a chance to win a free week at a beach house.
Nice.
So see me if you
A
want
whole
that.
week or a weekend?
Week, June, what does it say? See, June 28th to July 5th.
Okay.
Yeah,
See?
that's a week.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
And it's at a beach that's quiet. It's Topsail Beach.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
that one.
about
About
yeah.
that. Yeah. No gangsters down there.
no, that's-
You know,
that
get,
one's- that one's-
get away from the Fayetteville a little bit.
$100 is too much for
So,
Myrtle.
Josh, what you been up to the last week? I haven't seen you in like
I
3
know,
weeks.
man. Whew, so it all began when I went on vacation 2 weeks
Oh,
ago,
wow.
and the dominoes just started
Well,
falling
you had
everywhere.
your main event. You had Easter, and you're out.
Yes, I was
That's
out.
it.
I was out. I left after Easter dinner. I headed to the coast, and I then started getting phone calls. This person is not doing well in hospice care, and just before you know it, I have 3 people who passed and a wedding to do that week also. And so I did 2 funerals last week, and we'll do 1 this upcoming week. And so yeah, that's a whole nother level of
That's
just
what you get for going on vacation.
yeah, busy, doing gravesides and the family and all that stuff. And I tell people all the time, I am not one of those pastors I know pastors who will not do funerals. I mean, they simply refuse. But for me, I tell people all the time, it's one of my single greatest honors to be able to walk with a family through that
Sure.
time of grief.
Yeah.
And so I had all that, and goodness, that has literally consumed all my time. Of course, we know this past week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and so the school decided to tap my shoulder and ask me to do a breakfast for all the faculty and
Okay.
staff. So
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
was up at 4:30 in the morning.
You were cooking?
Yeah, baby.
What'd you cook?
I made omelets. I made grits. I made home fries. I made bacon, sausage,
And didn't invite
Now hold up.
anybody.
You said home fries.
homemade,
up.
homemade.
So hold up now. Hold up,
Homemade
because I've been
home
going to
fries.
some of these restaurants in Fayetteville, and they say they're doing home fries. There used to be a bunch of diced potatoes.
No.
So home fries, where I'm from, you got to take the potatoes, you chop them up, then you boil them down a little bit.
Boom.
Then you put some oil and butter
Yeah.
in there, and you got to fry them, and you got to get some crust on
Yes.
them.
Yes.
That's what we talking about?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Don't invite me next time. See what happens.
And not only did I have those for breakfast, but then I also ate them for lunch.
Yes,
That's
sir.
how good they were.
Yes, sir. Okay, we
We
I
good,
told
we
you,
good,
Black.
yeah.
Well, I told you. I told you.
All right. So, Miss Carrie,
Carrie J.
it's weird. A week goes by, I don't see you. I think I saw you last Tuesday. That was it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been busy.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything jump out?
With a smirk.
No,
Ladies with that cute little.
no. But there's a lot of great things that are coming up.
Okay.
You know, because
okay.
we have now entered into Small Business Month.
Mhm.
The Police Foundation. They have the Police Foundation Week is coming up. You have Nurses Week that's coming up.
I saw the announcement from the chamber about the job fair. They're going to do it again this summer.
Yes,
Oh, nice.
yes,
July,
the
I think.
Career
Career Day,
Resource
yeah.
Expo.
That should be
So
good.
there's a lot of, it's the month of the military child.
Okay.
Our community salutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's May
We serve
May
too.
7th or 8th.
May 7th.
May 7th. Yeah, it's coming right
so
up.
it's there's a lot of great things that are coming up. So
Okay. All right.
So let's hold on. Now you mentioned the police foundation. Now I be
Yes.
getting phone calls and I hang up on them because I
why
don't.
do you hang up
because
on the
I don't
police?
know.
They
I don't,
need prayer.
No, I get phone calls from the police foundation and the firefighters thing, and I hang up on both of them because I don't know if I'm dealing with a scammer or
Because
not.
you're just traveling.
So can somebody please tell me and others who would listen how to know if you are dealing with a scam? Or if this is if it's real, I have no problem donating.
I think
So
we need
this
to look
is-
at Chief down here and ask him.
Yeah, like,
what a
I was gonna say, ain't but
legitimate
like 5
what a
people
legitimate
probably
would be.
that are
So-
probably calling your phone.
Yeah,
ahead,
so
Chief.
here locally, we have a foundation here locally, and I ask that, if you want to give locally, it's going to the people, the men and the women that are here locally.
Okay.
And I think that's the best course of action, is to give to the
Yep.
organizations that that are, localized, that you can do your follow-up.
So will they
Find
call
Melissa
and say
Reed.
I'm calling from the Fayetteville Police Foundation? Is there like a certain name, or because when I get called, they're gonna be, hey, John, this is so and so calling from the Firefighters Foundation. How you doing, buddy? We sent you out some information. I'm like, you are who? And then and then I just click because to me it's like, are you trying to scam me out of? Because I've given over the phone in the past, and then I'm like, did I give to a real organization or did I just get duped out of some money?
Well, Bishop, because you are here locally, and if you come to a chamber event, I'm pretty sure
Are you trying to throw me under the bus?
possibly
I think
see-
she's saying she wants
meet
him
some
to-
foundation
You will most
members.
likely see Melissa Reed. She will be there, and she is. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen her before. But if you see her,
Melissa Reed, not Joy Reed.
that's
Not
correct.
Joy Reed.
Melissa Reed, and if you see her, she'll probably actually have some index cards with some officers that you could pray for. Just pick an index card,
Okay.
and then you can also she can help point you in the direction to receive those donations.
Okay. See, I can do that. I
And
don't
then
mind
you know
giving.
that
I
it's
just don't
going
want
to a
be.
specific.
There's so
Scam.
many scams out there. You don't, and they it's like they target, and they call around a certain time.
Yes,
and it's
every day.
It's like
Yeah.
what in the world?
I never,
Yeah.
never pick up on no numbers.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
But they do it now. They'll call you from your own number. Your own number will pop up on your display, and you're like, I'm calling myself,
Right.
and then you answer it, and it's a scammer.
Scam.
But they literally are calling you. They'll call you from a 910 number.
Nope.
They'll call you from. They have called people from their own phone numbers. I don't know how they do it, but it's a scam.
Yeah,
So
but you do have to
don't
be
give your
careful.
hard-earned money away.
Yeah.
Go
Just go
online.
directly
I
to
work
the
for that
Fayetteville
50
Police
cent.
Yes,
Foundation,
just go
and
directly
hey.
to them.
Okay.
I work for that dollar.
So I gave you. I actually did homework this time.
You
I
do.
know, great.
I actually gave you homework. So
A lot.
I want to skip the Fayetteville update for right now because we do have Chief Braden in here. I do want to mention stuff going on in the legislature. We got to
Hold
eat
on,
our
Peter. I'll
got to
tell
eat
you
our
what I did
vegetables.
last week.
What'd you did?
What you did?
What'd you did?
What you did?
What you do last week, Bishop?
That joker went to Douglasburg. Woo! No, last week, I wrote a book. Well, I
That's
finished
right.
writing
You
the book.
did.
He launched
Okay.
the book.
I finished writing the book. Now, this book is called Facing the Storms, Dealing with Life's Natural Disasters. And what I do is I take different storms, windstorms, firestorms, things like that, and I kind of parallel that with the storms that we go through in life, like earthquakes or those events in life that shake your life
Yeah.
up violently and tear stuff up.
I mean, you're going to have to come to my church and preach that.
Yeah, and so, but the thing is, the book is not
Like a
something that I
revival.
just started writing.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing this book. My daughter's 16. I started writing this book when she was 1.
Wow.
So it's been 15 years in the making, and people are like, well, why did it take you so long to write the book? Did you not have anything to say? No, I just kept going through different storms.
Yeah.
Every time I thought I'm gonna get back to this book, a storm hit. It knocked the wind out of you sometime, and you look up, and it's 2, 3, 4 years down the line,
Yep.
and then you add another chapter, and then you add another
The
chapter.
storm I just
so
went through.
literally every storm in there is me writing about whether it was the death of my mother, the murder of my brother, the loss of a child, all of those things, it's in the book, but it's in storms.
Okay.
Because we go through those. So I did that. I'm working on I realized that I have like 3 books inside of my hard drive that I finished and just never knew how to publish, got discouraged with them, and just kind of left them there. So another one that I'm finishing is called 30 Days to a Better You. It's a 30-day devotional. And every day it gives you scripture, it gives you some talking points, and then it gives you an assignment at the end of each day on how to change your life over that 30 days.
So you're going to self-publish?
Yeah. So I'm self-publishing under what I've done is I created a publishing company so that I can self-publish. It's called Writer's Block Publishing. Because, sometimes that's what you get. You get writer's block. So I've been focused on that. I think once I finished Facing the Storms, it just threw me into this writing, like I'm up all night just writing now. Taking everything that's in here and writing it down. So I'm sitting places eating, and I'll just open my phone and start talking into the phone so that I can transcribe it. It's been, and it's therapeutic.
Yeah, it is.
It's very
Okay, well, I'm waiting on my autograph copy, first print.
Well, we're working
and
on...
then we'll have a whole show, and I'm going to read it, and I'm going to go through it.
We're working on doing a book signing and a book launch, so I'm going to be giving... autographed copies. Okay. But the book is supposed to launch on Amazon on June 1st. That's the launch date on Amazon.
Okay.
It'll be June 1st. It'll go live.
All right.
So excited about that.
Well,
get all those pre-sales together.
And I ain't have no more kids.
Okay.
I didn't do it. I don't care what she say. It wasn't me.
No, you've had
It
enough.
wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
But my 2 kids that I got at the house.
Yeah.
Let me tell y'all something. These kids crazy these days. Like, I'm so serious. Kids have, you know what? And we're going to talk about this on the show a little bit, but let me tell you something that I'm realizing. This gentle parenting thing is a scam.
Yeah.
Why should I have to gentle parent my kids when they don't gentle kid me?
No, that's right.
They're not gentle with me.
Are they
These
abusing
kids.
you?
Yes.
Are they abusing you?
Let me tell you. So I tried to prank them yesterday. They coming in the door, and I just start screaming, LaShawn, Chugs, help, help. And they come running, Daddy, what's wrong? And I couldn't keep a straight face. I looked at them, I said, every time I close my eyes, I can't see. My kids,
You know what?
they looked at me like, are
See,
you
that's
serious?
why you
You're
don't
going to
have
get an
gentle
old folks
parents.
home where they drop you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to
They're
pay
not
extra
gonna
for
come
that
back.
kind
My
of
daughter
crap.
said, Daddy, are you serious? I said, I'm so serious. Something wrong with my eyes. Every time I close them, I can't see. But,
So-
yeah, that was my week.
So what's the next?
Here's
on
some
the agenda?
vegetables for you. So
Vegetables?
I spoke to Senator McGinnis before we went on the air, and I just wanted to kind of update. There's a few things in the House that are going through. There's this one bill, HB 171. It's called Equality in State Agencies, Prohibition on DEI, and that one's working its way through. And then there's House Bill 318. So here, and we do have a law enforcement professional in the room, but it's called the Criminal Illegal Alien Enforcement Act. It passed 75-45, and it's now in the Senate Rules Committee. So I called Senator McGinnis for 2 things. I remember, how a bill becomes a law, that it has to be both houses have to agree, and then it goes to the governor.
I'm just a bill.
So I remember that, but I'm like, okay, well, only the House is passing this, so we're only the Senate. So I wanted him to kind of clear it up. But the Illegal Alien Enforcement Act is the one that's basically telling all of our county sheriffs that they need to cooperate with federal agencies, in this case, ICE. How, as a law enforcement professional, I mean, I know they're voted in sheriffs, but how do they get the balls not to want to work with a federal agency? I mean, is that a moral thing that they just say they don't want to do it?
So, I think there's a couple different levels you got to look at this at. As a sheriff, that's an elected position. That's the people's voice on who they want to be the number one law enforcement officer within their county. And it's at the will of the people. Police chiefs, they're appointed, they're hired, they go through screening processes, they work at the will of the manager and the city council, and a sheriff's elected.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of power. With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
And there's one thing that I think that all law enforcement agencies, whether you're a sheriff's department, whether you're a police department, whether you're a probation, is enforce the law. Okay, the laws are already on the books. If something says you're required to do this, okay, there's certain crimes out there that guess what, You might catch me not wearing a seatbelt. Okay, but
Well, you're retired now, so you might be a little lax.
But that doesn't mean that I if required to do so, shouldn't enforce a seatbelt law.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the fact that there's occasions where I don't wear a seatbelt, I'm more apt to use my discretion when dealing with a potential seatbelt charge.
Okay.
I think, based on the fact that sheriffs are elected, and immigration and enforcement is such a political issue, I think that's why a lot of sheriffs take stances they do. I can tell you this, that all law enforcement is to protect and uphold the constitutional rights of the people that will fall within the jurisdiction we're at. And the one thing we're required to do as law enforcement officer is uphold the law and enforce court orders. So I don't think that it's local law enforcement's job for immigration enforcement. That's why we have ICE.
Right.
That's why we have federal agencies that enforce that. So if there was an assistance for another law enforcement agency and they had valid reason to take that enforcement action, I would expect that our sheriff probably assist in enforcing the law. Does that mean the sheriff has to go out there and proactively call people off work job sites to say, okay, yeah, what is your status? No, by all means, no.
I think it was just about detainer. Like if you pull this guy over, no license, whatever, or you find drug paraphernalia, you're going to take him to jail and book him.
And that's been the way ever since I was a young cop. When we'd run a license or whatever, it would say, hey, there's a detainer on this subject. Take to the local county jail for whatever reason.
Right.
And those are court orders. And I just think it's the political nature of the world we live in today.
We know that's been hugely contested, like in the presidential election. We know it's a big deal for President Trump. But was this bill maybe had to be put together was there a lack of? Because the sheriffs voted in, did he need guidance from the legislature to just basically say, look, this is what we want you to enforce from the legislature? Had there just been an absence of instruction before?
I can't really speak to that.
Okay.
My entire almost 30 years have been spent with the city of Fayetteville.
Right.
I don't know what stance our sheriff has taken on this.
It's more like, was there just a lack of guidance? Because you have this big push now to enforce it.
And I think everything is so politicized these days,
right?
Where right and wrong don't need to be politicized. People know what right is. People know what wrong is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and I think that if we would get back to the basics of, especially from a law enforcement perspective of, that person shot and killed somebody. Yes,
that is bad.
So,
or no, that person was speeding. The officer had every right. Why are they cussing, hollering, and screaming at the officer on the roadside? No, they're not being harassed. You were speeding.
Right.
Take the ticket, carry on.
Yeah, don't practice your case on the side of the road.
I think this also comes back into the whole, and I'm just going to pull this out here because Cumberland County is always good for throwing around this jurisdiction thing, right? And it's been a hard pill for me to swallow.
Jurisdiction thing meaning what? What do you?
Okay, so as far as like when
at?
it comes down to law enforcement, so the actual highest elected official in the county is the sheriff.
Yes.
Right? That's the highest elected official.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Chief executive of the county having arrest powers.
Yes. So when you look at elected officials, like Chief Braden said, you're looking at someone that is going to uphold the Constitution because they swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? We talked about this a little bit last week. So when it comes down to federal agencies and them coming in to enforce laws, like the chief said, they're going to enforce what's there as a court order. They're going to enforce what's there to be legally just. If it falls into the area of gray space, then that means that it needs to go to the judicial system for processing and due process. However, you have the city of Fayetteville Police Department, Town Hope Police Department, that are not under the same constraints, elected constraints, to have to serve the people. Like it says, protect and serve.
This bill was directed at county sheriffs,
I understand.
It was exclusively for them.
But and then I'm gonna go back to and then that's why it becomes a political issue because now you have the legislative branch reaching over to the judicial branch to enforce something that is typically, like, if you are trying to enforce something, Go to the police department. That's what police departments are for. You need help engaging in. But I don't know. It comes to a jurisdiction.
I would say this. I think part of the issue is that the sheriffs have jurisdiction over the jails, which is where a lot of these detainers and stuff for immigration are taking place. When they see somebody that is in their custody that has that ICE detainer on them, the police department, we have nothing to do with that. But the jail would be compelled. The sheriff would be compelled based on this law to notify ICE and put that detainer on.
I mean, look, and if you read the bill, it's very plain. So I think Christina out west before has told us that, if you just look this bill up, it's pretty plain English, and they even make a summary to maybe it does have a little legalese, but then there's a summary that says, okay, this is plain English. This is what it
so
says.
what are the consequences for a sheriff that does not adhere to this law?
I don't think there is no consequence.
I mean,
that's the issue, because they're elected. You can't spank them.
But you can, and here's why I say that.
There's this a standards commission.
Standards and practice.
I mean, if you arrest a judge for slipping someone who ICE has a detainer on out the back door of the courthouse, that judges are elected.
Well, because
as well.
then you're complicit in helping that person evade prosecution.
Same thing.
Or
If a sheriff, because if I'm not mistaken, anything law enforcement based that happens within that county, the sheriff of that county knows about it. I don't care if it's FBI, whatever it is. The sheriff knows what's going on in his or her county, so they know if there's an ICE detainer. They know if there's a detainer, a pickup order from ICE on an individual. They're notified, and then they send out that call or however they do it that says, "Look, we are going to." We're going to enforce this order from the court. No, the sheriff doesn't go out and enforce the order, but hey, we need your support. So they know. So then there has to be a consequence.
Well, this bill wasn't saying sheriff go get these guys. This
No.
bill is saying sheriff, if these men are in, or men and women are in custody, then hold on to them so ICE can come get them.
Yeah, but there has to be.
And that's it. And I think my stance was, I think there was a lack of direction.
Okay.
About what the sheriffs needed to do, and I think you have the legislature trying to pass some guidance and saying, look, we want to cooperate with ICE, and politically motivated or whatever, these people are still here illegally. So they've broken the law. That's it. And they've probably broken other laws of ours by being picked up to begin with.
So by writing this into law, what it does is it takes the political nature out of it for the sheriff. I have no choice. This is the law. This is what I'm required to do based on the position that I hold. Again, I think, sometimes, there's a lot of discretion within the law enforcement community of what I don't have to ride a seatbelt ticket. I don't have to, and then there are things that no, we are compelled and have to do. And I think what this law does, it actually compels these sheriffs within their jails to notify if they have someone who has an active detainer.
Now, Chief, I got a question for you.
Oh, boy.
No, this is a serious question. Because I thought
I can tell by the way you're winding up.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about things that police are compelled to do and things that they kind of have some discretion on. Like, you're not wearing a seatbelt, I can give you a warning, I give you a summons. Are police compelled to run my tags?
No.
And what prompts them to run? Because I've seen cops
Expired.
No. I've seen cops like
no tags.
I've seen
The
them
warrants
get
you
behind,
have.
No, I've seen them get behind me. And you can always tell when your tags are being run because they stay close to you. Once it comes back, ain't nothing, they fall back and then they peel off somewhere else. And I'd be like, why are they running my tag? And I've seen them run other people's tags, and I'm like.
So think about this. I think I reported last year, I ran the numbers probably about mid-year last year. A bulk majority of our department has been here 5 years or less. Okay, so we have a lot of young cops out there that are trying to learn how to do this job.
Okay.
One of the most basic things we can do is look for a headlight out. At nighttime, you ride around a headlight. Yeah, they know there's a violation there. They can pull that over. They can sit at a stoplight, watch people run a stoplight. That's obvious. There's something there. And as they branch out and try to use technology, they try to, look for other things. If you're at a light and you see a tag that a brand new car with a tag that's all faded and wore out, the greatest thing we can do with our young cops is encourage their curiosity where they want to look for the things that don't look right.
Situational awareness.
Situational awareness. So if you're at a light, for me, I see a nice, brand new, shiny car with an old tag, one of two things just happened, right?
You stole
it. They either bought a brand new car, transfer the old tag over there. You run it just to make sure the tag is on the right car. You know, there's all kinds of reasons why you would run a tag. You know, if you look at it, I can tell you this right now. I got stopped. I was going to play at a golf tournament at Gates 4, and the gate guard says, "Hey, your tags are expired." I'm like, "No, they're not. Somebody stole the sticker off my tag."
Is that a retirement prank?
but you know,
We'll see you again.
But you know, there's all kinds of things
really
that can happen.
jail
You know, but running the tags is, again, I think it's up to us to encourage the curiosities of young cops, to look for those things that are out of the ordinary, to you know. Again, there's nothing wrong with being curious. Where cops get in trouble is when they start to racially profile.
Gotcha.
Profiling is done every day. The FBI has profilers that go out there and try to figure out who this murderer is.
Right.
It becomes illegal when you profile someone solely based upon their race.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they're not profiling
Or
you
their-
based on your
or
race,
their
but your
gender.
face.
Yeah,
Dun-dun.
it's not always a DWB, Bishop. It's not always that.
Was that driving while broke?
That's right. And we're going to talk some more about that. We're going to take a small little break. We'll be right back.
The cancel culture is not welcome here. You're listening to the Conservative Carolina Cabinet, Eastern North Carolina's most offensive talk show to the freeloading left. Free thinking, hard-hitting, truth-telling. You're listening to the Carolina Cabinet, Eastern North Carolina's answer to the radical left. Liberal media's blah, blah, blah. Welcome back to local conservative talk radio.
And good morning and welcome back. I'm Peter here with Carolina Cabinet, here with Pastor Josh.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Carrie J.
Fired a uniparty.
Love the tag. Bishop.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
You should have just said DWB.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
And Chief, good morning. It's very nice to see you again here. And
Driving while bald.
yeah. So we got a little more. I wanted to talk about what's been going on in our little community, our little abode of Fayetteville. We've had a troublesome couple of weeks. I mean, this past weekend we did have a murder that was almost caught on camera, I think.
Yeah.
The immediate aftermath, anyway. The poor
The
man
revolution will be
the young man
televised.
was dying.
Yep.
At,
I don't know
off of Cliffdale.
that would be a proper wording, murder, because this guy's claiming
Unalived.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know right now.
He was
is the
killed
issue.
and he's claiming self-defense.
Well, and somebody
So-
was taken into custody. They did say
Yes.
there was another person that eluded,
Yep.
but I'm sure they're going to catch. But, you know, multiple shootings have happened. It's ended in fatalities, but who's to blame for all this? I mean, is this my mayor's fault, city council?
I'm blaming Bishop.
Okay.
You know,
Seems
praise the
right.
Lord.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. You know
Okay.
what? Here's the thing, and I've been saying this all week. You cannot legislate morality. You just can't do it.
That's right.
People are responsible and must be held accountable for their own actions. I cannot blame the police department for what you do with your life. The police usually are responding to a call for service. They are not creating call for unless they witness something. They're still responding to that need for service.
Action, reaction.
Exactly. The mayor, again, I ran against the man, so I'm not going to toot his horn, but I am going to say this in his defense. You can't blame the mayor for people shooting down by Festival Park. I don't care how many barriers you put up. All you're going to do is move the shooting 2 blocks over.
Right.
Until people, it's a heart thing. It's a human thing. It is a, you know, we have come into a culture now where life is not valued.
Right. Life is cheap.
And other people's lives are not valued. That's why you walk into any place and just spray the place up, because you have no value for your life or the life of the others. So how do we deal with that? One way I think we deal when it comes to the young people, and we'll get into this, is you got to put resources in place for these young people. When Chief Medlock was here, I said to him one day in front of police headquarters, I said, Chief, if we don't do something quickly, we're going to lose an entire generation. We have to, it's not that these kids these days don't have role models. The problem is a lot of them, the ones we see doing this crazy stuff, they got bad role models. If you look at, a lot of them don't have fathers in the homes. And this is not a dig at women, but it is a statistical fact that children raised by single mothers are far more likely to end up in prison and things like that. Children raised even by single fathers have a less chance of ending up in prison and committing crimes and stuff. When the family was dismantled, you dismantled morality, you dismantled the emotion from it, you dismantled the care from it, and we are reaping the harvest of things that were done 40 and 60 years ago. And it looks like, oh, this is just happening now. This has been happening for some, is decades 10?
Yes.
Yeah.
For decades. I get my decades and centuries
okay.
and millenniums messed up.
So
But
I just
almost
want
a
to add about
century.
the shooting last weekend. The victim was not a kid. He's 36 years old. So, we talk about engaging the youth and saving the youth. And
do we know how old the guy was that shot him?
I don't know, but I don't think.
As I look back to my former life as the chief of police, I remember I did a roadside, basically a press conference after we had 2 or 3 shootings in the same night. And one of the things I said that night is the sanctity of life is no longer sacred. People just they don't care.
Right.
And how did we get there? I always look back, and I think I wrote a white paper on this one time back at a school or a class that I went to. As a society, and we talked about this earlier, before we went on the air, we've had a shift in our views and our norms and our values.
Right.
Okay, I talked about some of the best TV programming over the past 10 years. You look at who here didn't watch Breaking Bad?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're rooting for a meth cook. We don't want him to get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, who in here ever watched an episode of Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah.
We're rooting for the outlaw motorcycle gang leader who is moving prostitutes, guns, things like that. That shift where we're starting to root for the guys that usually, 50 years ago would have been wearing the black hat. We're no longer rooting for the guy with the white hat. We're rooting for the people that are out there with the black hats on. Yep. When we look at, all aspects of life, when we inundate our kids with modern warfare video games at age 8, 9, 10, when we expose them to, graphic violence on TV, when we expose them to social media, one of the reasons I think, especially with police body camera videos, imagine if every body camera video was accessible on Facebook. You don't want all that stuff on.
No.
I had a little cringe factor when I saw the video that occurred this weekend. But that's where our society has taken us now, and we're calling on the cops to fix the problem. Now we're calling on our elected officials to fix the problem. Me personally, these are just personal choices. My son didn't have a toy gun when he was growing up because I didn't want him to view guns as toys.
To idolize it. Yeah.
Okay, he learned to shoot at an earlier age.
Yep. Mine did.
Mine did too.
But those are personal choices I made. But when you're playing Modern Warfare before you go to school and you've replayed that segment of the video game 5 times and you've killed 100 people until you can get through there, we've desensitized people to pulling that trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're not thinking about the effects of your decision making because you're playing a video game. But how does that translate into real life when you have a real gun in your hand?
Yeah.
And you're not sitting there looking at the consequences of your actions of pulling the trigger once when you've pulled it thousands of times on a video game.
Right.
And it, you know what? I'm gonna say this real quick because as Chief was talking, I was thinking about something. Even the verbiage that is used now is designed to desensitize us to these things. So it's no longer that you killed somebody or you murdered somebody; you unalived them. It desensitizes. It takes the severity out of it.
Yeah.
Because now I just unalived them.
Well, that was an effort of social media
Yeah.
because the posts kept getting taken down. They also removed the pictures of an actual gun. Now it's a little squirty gun or whatever else. So
I think it's interesting what Chief said too in regards to I've never thought about this, Chief, where they play these video games over and over and they're, you guys learned in the military about muscle memory. Where it's something you do over and over.
And don't think about it.
And you don't think about it.
Yep.
You don't think about it. And just like that,
Just like that.
somebody's dead.
Yeah.
So, when you look at, especially for our youth, some of the camps where they take them, the wilderness camps, I've seen those, and I'm not saying that I'm a proponent for it, but what it does, it takes them away where they take away their cell phones, they take away their social media. They take them out of that normalized societal things that they do. And it's sort of, I don't think reprogramming is the right word, but it's showing them a different way where you don't have to live and be on Facebook 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Where you can go outside and have just as much fun, playing, even if you're not into sports, having a physical activity that you can do to get you away from your screen time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we don't experience other things, we just constantly go with what we know. I know people that live on social media.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally. That's all.
Yeah.
Like,
And then that's
you'll
all
see their
that they-
lives and they're sleeping on the live.
Yep.
And that's all that they take in, so that
Yes.
becomes their reality.
Becomes their
However,
reality.
social media is not your reality.
And
It's
when-
virtual reality.
And when it becomes your reality, and there are forces who are weaponizing that reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these people, they are not individuals who we would say lack education or whatever. No, they're naive. People have used these things to weaponize them, and now they buy in hook, line, and sinker.
And then there's no actual thought process to break down, to understand and decipher the truth. There was on one of the posts with the video, because I actually cringed when I watched the video too, and I was like, why am I watching this? And then I scrolled to the comments, and like one of the comments was, well, why do they even have a
ARs,
rifle to begin
yeah.
it? But to me, one, I'd rather see, I've always been, for all those people that are like proponents of 2A, I want to see it. I'm not a proponent of the concealed carry. I understand the premise for it now, especially in this nature of the environment that we're in, but I've never been for it, because it's like, and y'all know me, like if that's what you stand for, then I want to see it. If you have a weapon, then I want to see it. But that's just because I want to know what could potentially happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? But there are constructive measures that are in place. And so like even to like that program that Chief was talking about, like it may not be the best fit. However, and it's the challenge programs, multiple states have it. But it's almost like them going to military, but if they can't qualify for military, then at least they could go to the challenge program. And it's not everybody's
There's
fit.
an intermediary. Yeah. And so I was arguing with somebody about homelessness last week, and I said, look, just because the city wants to have these little tiny houses doesn't mean you're going to make people go live there.
Yep.
Because this is still America. You can't make them go live anyplace.
So-
But then, and then the other thing,
You lost it.
I
You're
did
at that
lose-
age,
yeah, I
baby.
lost-
I
I
saw.
lost-
I
Is
saw.
that he old?
Yeah.
See,
So
got me.
people
She got
don't
me.
believe this, but there's a large segment of our homeless population that is homeless by choice.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Well,
Ernest McLean.
That's what I was getting at. They're all unique.
Yes.
In their reasons.
And I said something, when we did the panhandling ordinances and when we did the homeless ordinances, they're not interchangeable. Panhandling, there's people that have houses, they panhandle all day, then go home and live in their house.
Yep. I know some.
There's homeless people that never panhandle. They're just homeless and camp on the side of the road.
Right.
Again, there's not one law that's going to fix every problem that we have.
No.
But we had, and he was retired from the military. He got a disability check every month.
He lived under the bridge. Are you talking?
And he lived downtown, and and he had a home in Spring Lake, and again, that's where they mailed his retirement benefits checks and everything. But he made a conscious decision that he wanted to hang out in the Beach Street area and live a certain lifestyle, and that's the choice he made. Again, we can't lump all homelessness in one category. We can't lump all panhandlers into one category. It's almost like having to go to the doctor. Someone needs to look at them and analyze what the problem is, and then make a recommendation on how to best suit them.
Right.
I remember, and I think you can still find it on YouTube. They had this thing where they put $100,000 in a briefcase and they put it in a dumpster, and the guy's in the dumpster finds it and he gets $100,000. I think within 6 months he was back living
Back
on the
home.
streets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't just give people money and expect them to know how to invest it, to know what I need right now. How do I invest part of this money? You know, because we all go a little crazy when we get money. I just retired. I got nothing to do. You know,
You're on Amazon.
I'm on Amazon all the time. There's something by the house every day. You know, I'm about to have to get a second job or declare bankruptcy because of Amazon. But you know, when our situations change and we don't know how to effectively manage that change, you know, we get ourselves into problems. No, I'm just joking, y'all. I'm still good.
We know.
We know that you're good.
I got some boxes of the restaurant you need them.
But you know, that we got people that are in the homeless situations that and again, it's not every, you know, sometimes it's poor management of themselves, sometimes it's situational that guess what, you know, I got kicked out of the house I've been renting for 10 years because, you know, they sold the house out from under me.
Right.
So, you know, we all have different situations, and we got to treat them as the individualized situations that they are.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes in. The police can't fix that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get DSS involved. You're going to have to get these nonprofits involved. You're going to have to get the Day Resource Center actually doing things. You're going to have to get some resources out there where, you know, I remember when I was a young man, I had
not that long ago.
I had a kid very young in life. Okay, you know, and the resources that were available to me were all or nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I was looking to get, I can't remember, Medicaid, Medicare, whichever one it was, to help, you know, some of the medical bills when I was having my son.
Sure.
And they told us, hey, listen, you work 2 part-time jobs and you go to school full-time, you don't qualify.
You're too productive of a citizen. Yeah.
And I said, well, I only need temporary help because as soon as I graduate the police academy, I'll be able to get hired and I can do something.
Yeah.
And the recommendation for me was to abandon my wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm a guy that has a situational problem that can rectify itself within 6 months. And you can't give us anything, but if I leave my wife and kids,
she can have everything.
She can have everything.
They incentivize dysfunction.
I said that doesn't make sense to me. Okay, that didn't help me. Okay, and again, you know, I could only imagine had I left them, where we would be today.
Right.
As opposed to saying, no, it's not worth it. I can suffer for 6 months and get through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mentality, and you know, Bishop had talked about that as well. But that's the mentality that a lot of people tend to leave out of the equation, especially when you're talking about homelessness and you're talking about youth and you know, criminal activity. Like, it's great for you to talk about how you can legalize it and legislate your way out of it, or what, you know, this certain elected official has done and what they haven't done. But okay, but can we take a look at the actual system and how the system has actually incentivized? Like, in order for you to be a productive person that is on the system, you probably need to have at least 4 kids, and you can't work.
Well, you still.
Well,
got
if you
time,
do
Carrie,
work,
so.
you can't work. But
Yeah, like
somebody else.
if you would like to,
You gotta go work at
We
Baldino's.
incentivize the wrong behavior
if
in
you
our
would like
social welfare
to be
system.
able to collect enough food stamps in order to maintain your house,
Go
you
work at
cannot
Baldino's.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, go work at Baldino's, but you can only work at Baldino's 10 hours out of the week.
Yes.
You know, you can't work there 30 hours and be
You
productive.
got to do just enough to remain qualified. So
the other thing we do wrong, I think, is you know, we send these people to a day resource center to say, hey, you got to go down there, you got to produce this. You know, like anything else, you know, I think there's an issue of case management that has to be, you know, brought with that.
That is
you know,
correct.
because everybody's not going to just find the answers they need at the day resource center.
No.
Not everybody's going to, you know, just go down there and magically open and find the right nonprofit to help them get to where they need to be. Not everybody's needs are exactly the same.
Nope.
So, you know, I think if we could get together and actually get where we have some true case management involved, okay, you know, Department of Social Services, that's what they do. They manage people's cases.
Well,
okay?
and it is the county's responsibility for health, safety, and welfare of the people.
Yes.
It's not the city.
And
but the city is the only ones that have ponied up the money for the Day Resource Center, which I try to tell people is like a nexus, a gathering spot for all the nonprofits to go find help. But we need case management.
Yeah, but the thing is that the Day Resource Center, they send them to county services, because in order for them to get a lot of the services,
Well, there's supposed to be a conduit to the right people.
Yeah, but to talk on what Chief's point is, like, you go to a Day Resource Center, and then the nonprofit is supposed to help facilitate your contact to a county service. However, you still got to go to a county service in order to talk to that nonprofit. Like, you have to go and get your background check and all that stuff in order to even start the communication.
So you have a day resource center with no resources because the resources are outsourced.
The resources are outsourced, and then the person that is doing the translation between the the I guess what
So
you
the
would
day
call
resource center is really just a
and the
conduit.
but the concierge is not properly handling
So I
your.
That's a good word.
I don't
your-
want to give up on the homeless today.
Oh, no,
but
we're not.
I want to move back to shootings and the youth, just because I got my thoughts back. Pastor.
Did you?
Oh, okay.
All right, let's go.
The similarities was
Yes.
that for the youth.
So again, I think they both deal with case management.
Absolutely.
Okay? When we talk about kids that have been in trouble multiple times, and generally you have kids that have never been in trouble, or you have kids that are constantly in trouble. And again, knowing what I know about the problems within our city, we have a lot of kids that are constantly in trouble.
Carrie.
Okay.
I know.
We will send them
Always find it.
to
right.
alternative school. We will
hang out
put them
with
on a
chicks, like,
probation.
stay out of
Okay, the probation is it a case management probation, or is it just, hey, I'm going to check on you, I'm going to check on your
every
monitor
month or something.
And it can't just be with the kid, it's got to be with the parents as well.
Absolutely.
When we talk about all I'm worried about is the kid, is he in home and on time? No, what kind of environment are there parents there that could keep tabs on the kid? Are you checking with the parent? Hey, you know where your kid's at? Hey, I'm coming over.
Is
Yeah,
that
that commercial
a
back
healthy
in the day?
place for
Yeah.
the child?
Okay, well,
Check the
do
children.
they still run those ads at 10 o'clock?
10
Do you know where your
o'clock.
kids
It's
are?
10 p.m. Do you know where your
No.
children are?
Yeah.
No.
Now it's like it's 3 a.m.
Actually,
Do you know
didn't
where
they
your
just
kids are?
discontinue PBS? I'm sorry.
We're supposed to. I don't know. It's some kind of liberal hippie stuff over there. No,
But let me say this about the shootings.
Poor black station.
And I think that I think perceptions are everything. If you read social media and or Facebook, it'll let you know that the city is out of control. No, we've had the lowest 2 years of violent crime in the past in 2023 and in 2024, and you're doing pretty okay in 2025. We've had a couple murders that have
Spiked
got the
up.
spotlight. But guess what? You're coming off the 2 lowest years of violent crime in over a decade. Okay, how does that get drowned out by the murder that happened yesterday? Again, because we are the instant gratification society that we are today. We're only worried about the last bad news we got.
Yeah.
yes.
And then we are also we have to realize that as a community, we have a shock syndrome. And because of that shock syndrome, every time something bad happens, it's the end of the world. That's just the way that it's.
Well,
that's the way
immediately
that it
people
has.
jump on these posts. They're like, "I hate Fayetteville."
That's the way
and
that it's
I can't
always
wait to get
been.
away
That's the
from
way
here.
it
It's like-
always will be. But
Yeah.
to Chief's point, we have had the lowest crime. They were just talking on a city council meeting about how 95% of all the crimes that are they're solved, and they're solved expeditiously, through the help of Crime Stoppers and stuff like that. So there are things out there, and Crime Stoppers just got an award for South.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm thinking, it's I was thinking when Chief just said, when you've come off the 2 lowest years, where crime has been down, you've had you've had crime, but you've had a pretty good run for the last 2 years, and then you get this spike now, and it's drown out the last 2 years. I don't know, this could be me. Y'all tell me if y'all think I'm wrong. This election year. So a lot of stuff that normally would not be polarized is going to be polarized, because you already see people who have already thrown out that they're going to run for mayor. They're already jumping on it and attacking COVID and all this other stuff. It's an election year. So you're going to see more harping on it, because weaponizing it, because it's an election year. We can't forget the fact that we have had a pretty good 24 and 23. 25 is just hitting us in an election year, and it's let's make this all we talk about and drown out everything else, because negativity drives people to the polls.
Yep.
Well, and I'll remind you too that in 2023, my first year as chief, we had, and again, not my proudest moment, but we had the record for the number of homicides that year. Right. But it was also one of the lowest years for violent crime across the board. Okay, so again, we can't intertwine the two together to say that just because we've had a spate of murders, that violent crime is out of control.
Right.
Okay, and we talk about, as we look at these, we're not having, knock on wood, the active shooter kind of homicides. We're not having the random breaking in a house and killing the occupants of the house homicides. We're having, the domestic violence homicides. Again, that doesn't make it
Most
better.
people know the perpetrator. That's
Yes, or we're having the lifestyle related of the drug robbery gone bad scenario, or we're having the robbery gone bad scenario. We're having the gang on gang kind of violence because there's a confrontation and somebody pulls a gun, so I pull my gun faster.
Right.
And not knowing anything about the one this weekend, that everything I've seen on social media, I believe that's probably the situation where we had two people that got into a confrontation, both had guns, and potentially one was faster.
Well, I
Faster
just saw
than
an
the other
update to it, and apparently they've spoken to two people, but nobody in custody, really. So, Chief, so I want to move and directly spotlight you. So if anybody doesn't know you, I mean, you've been with, so how long you been with Fayetteville City Police, or you were?
So I was a brand new rookie March 18th, 1996.
Okay, all right.
I put my hand on a Bible in the basement of the LEC and swore in as a Fayetteville police officer, and haven't looked back until March 1st of this
So
year.
you started out as a rookie, and you moved up through the ranks. So when did you start getting like up in the white shirts?
So I spent my first almost 22 years as either an officer or sergeant.
Okay.
So the last 7 to 8 years is when I went through. I was only a lieutenant for a short period of about 2 years.
Okay.
And half of that I was an acting captain. I went from an acting captain to I became a real captain. And
Okay.
decided, the momentum's carried me this far, and again, I think that's the moment when I started saying, what would I do if I was in charge? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say that at work. If I was in charge, I'd do this, this, and this. Not everybody gets that opportunity, and I saw an opening for me to have that opportunity. And what I realized real quick, even when you're the police chief, you still got bosses.
You just can't wave a wand. Yeah, right.
So
Darn.
Well, and your career. I mean, how many
Give him
police
a-
chiefs
give
did you
him a
have? I mean,
wand.
at least 4 or
So
5.
I started with Ron Hansen,
Right.
then Tom McCarthy, then Tom Bergermine. Then I worked for Harold Medlock,
Right.
Gina Hawkins. I worked for 3 interim chiefs, Major Philip Kennedy, he was
Kelly.
interim chief, Kelly, and
But that was before, in between Hawkins leaving and you being selected. You had 3.
Catherine Bryant. She was an
Okay.
interim before Medlock came.
Okay.
So, looking back, I've had a lot of fun in my career. There's a reason I spent so much time as an officer or sergeant. I truly believed in the things I was doing. I had the chance to be a part of several startup units. I was tasked as a young sergeant to come up with the gun violence task force, where we had a very violent summer where there were several shootings, and it culminated. We had a rolling gun battle down Ramsey Street, and I was approached and said, "Hey, if I gave you these resources, could you make some of this?" I'm like, "I'd like to try."
Yeah. Well, and you were pretty much the guy to go to because you didn't start your career in the office. You were out. I
Yes.
think you told a story
Over
one
by
time. You
Murchison
were
Road.
down
Yep.
Murchison Road using quarters in the payphone.
Yes.
Trying to call in the stuff. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
before-
you're kind of.
That's how old I am. They didn't even have cell phones. back
I
then.
always, whenever I've spoken about you or whatever, I'm like, he's kind of a street guy, kind of, not in a bad way, but you
Yeah.
you
It's
came
all
up.
right. He got
know.
his own
He
Purple
stand
Heart.
on business.
He has a Purple Heart too.
So throughout your career, you mentioned the Gun Violence Task Force. What are some other highlights or citations that you're not a guy that brags, so I got to ask.
Well,
you.
I'll tell you this. My career has been a lot of ups and downs.
Okay.
And March 20th, 2002, I was shot in the line of duty.
Okay.
Prior to that, I worked undercover. I bought cocaine, fentanyl, heroin. Well, this fentanyl really, but
For
heroin was back
recreational or
then.
job related?
As an undercover.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
He said he worked undercover. Come on now.
And I can tell you this, perspectives are everything.
Right.
As a young rookie cop, I just saw some of the things out in the streets that I didn't really have the perspective behind it to truly understand what I was doing and dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of wisdom that comes with age.
Tell me about it. Yeah, we got a little gray in this room.
But after I was shot, I was shot 5 times, and I'm sitting there laid up in the hospital with some of the best drugs known to man, because I was shot 5 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And after about a week of some of the best IV drugs known to man, I go to the step down unit and they start giving me Percocets, and I'm like, wow, this is only a touch with it.
Yeah.
And then they send me home with a bottle about this big of Percocet, and I gain perspective real quick on how someone's life can change. and-
How they
and
could
it's-
slip into the addiction. Yeah.
How they, here I was a cop, and arrested people for things that I was slowly sliding into. And when we talk about accountability, this is where I get my sense of accountability from. I was fortunate enough to have somebody to have an intervention on me before I slipped too far.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, when we sit there and we don't hold people accountable on the front end, and we allow them to catch their second charge, their third charge, their fourth charge, and then all of a sudden, their fifth or sixth one, we're talking about, okay, now you're really going to go to jail this time.
Right.
Yeah, they're laughing at you at that point.
Slippery slope, we've let it go too far.
They done slid down it by then.
There's council people that have talked about sentinel reviews.
Yes.
That has come up several times. What is a sentinel review?
There you go. I was going to ask you to describe that.
A sentinel review should be this, okay? It's not to place blame for something. It's to realize how you got to that moment in time.
Okay.
And what interactions could have occurred before that, which could have prevented what happens.
Okay.
So when we talk about our youth, okay, I would like to see a sentinel review on the Ferris wheel shooting. That young lady who's paralyzed
on
now
Cliffdale.
because,
Yeah.
okay, how many interactions did the suspect have with law enforcement prior to that? What if we would have taken something a step further prior to that date? Maybe got a secure custody order. Maybe put him in for some counseling. Maybe, had a parental intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Could any of those things prevented the shooting that occurred at the Ferris wheel from happening?
Right.
That's, to me, what a sentinel review is about. What could we have done prior to change that moment in time?
I think you have on council, you have some activist people that are trying to get a headline, get a popcorn headline. That's what I've said before. They know better, but they want their name listed, and it's
election,
just
yeah.
like
But then,
they want control over the policing process. And what I learned, I did go to one of these. What is is it Police Accountability Commission? Something the city has a commission on.
No, Community Police Advisory Board.
Okay, so I went to the first, I think, meeting, and Chief Hawkins was there. And, you've got people that want to inject themselves into the business of policing. And I'm sorry, but it is a profession. It's a business. You can't, from me, and I'm a sandwich maker. You got pastors. I got Miss Carrie
I'm
over
fluid.
here. She's an IT person. I got Jim. I don't know what the heck, but, I don't have that expertise, and you got people outside looking in.
But you
trying
make
to
a
judge
great
and
sandwich.
guide. I do make a good sandwich. I make a mean sandwich, but I'll stick to that, and I'll let Chief Braden do the, the criminology stuff.
So I can see both sides of that coin, okay? And I'll tell you this, one of the things I didn't have going into the chief job was that public presence, okay?
Are you trying to tell me you're not a politician?
I was sort of the cop that got stuff done. I
Okay.
wasn't the guy that was going out. But what I did realize very quick as a chief of police, that you can't do the job without having friends within the community.
Absolutely.
And again, I agree with you. There's certain things that I should seek their advice on, but as it pertains to enforcement of the law, I should only take recommendations. I would say this. I gave every cop that ever worked for me a definition of ethics. Okay, let's go around the room real quick. What do you think? What is your definition of ethics, Pastor?
Ethics. Keeping my clothes on.
oh, Jesus.
No, I'm joking. No, ethic is having a moral code that you live by. For me, my ethics are biblically based. I look at what does the text say, and I kind of guide based on. Do I get it all right? No.
So I would argue that that's not ethics. Those are your morals. Those
Okay.
are your values.
Okay.
Okay. And again, it's great to have those, and I think every cop should have a set of morals and values that they adhere to, but they're not ethics. Does anyone have any differing?
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to dip my toes in those waters.
All I was going to say was
was
doing the right thing when nobody else is around.
Well, and that's
To
your
me,
morals and
that's
values.
morals and
Yeah.
values, yeah.
But it
Every-
goes-
This is the
I think
definition.
it also goes back into legality and integrity.
Well,
Well,
all right. Well,
teach us.
Yes,
we
teach us.
just struck out on the ethics.
Teach us.
So let me tell you the definition that I give. Okay, I
Teach me.
I make all the cops realize that ethics are the expectations or the
Okay.
code of conduct that is placed upon an individual based on their role, title, position, or profession.
Say it again, Chief. Say it again.
For the ones in the back.
For the ones in the back.
For the ones in the back that wasn't listening.
It's the expectations or code of conduct
Okay.
that is placed upon an individual based on their role, title, position, or profession.
I know that's right.
So let me give you this. You know, I would like to say that most people are good people in general. We have good morals. We have good values. We're not going to go. But guess what? Ethically, could you go out tonight to Chili's and have a beer? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Anybody in this room could, right?
We can all go have a beer.
Could
You
you
don't
have
want to see me after
Could you
a
have
beer.
2?
Now we're getting hazy.
Could you get 3, then get into verbal confrontation with the bartender?
I'm drunk from the smell.
No.
Again,
At what point
could
does
you
it
could
become-
you drink 6 beers, go outside and puke in the bush?
Right.
Okay, have you broken any laws?
No?
The average person could do that. The cops may come. They're like, "Hey, get a taxi, go home."
That's
man."
right.
But depending on your,
Now,
your
role, title,
and your
position,
role and
profession. Imagine the chief of police going to Chili's,
Oh, or a
drinking
nightclub.
6 beers,
Yeah, or the pastor of Cliffdale.
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
pastor
Or
going
the
out there drinking
pastor
6
of
beers.
Cliffdale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, you guys
Puking in
had
the
a-
bush.
you
Getting
guys had a
mouthy with the
party.
bartender.
SNL.
They get kicked out, going out and
Right.
puking in the bush. You wouldn't accept that because you wouldn't think that is ethically what you want out of a police chief.
Absolutely.
Because so there's a set of circumstances, there's a set of expectations, and a code of
standards.
conduct that is expected. And what I try to drill home that definition for cops is because people are going to question you. People are going to hold you to a higher standard, and we have to willingly be able to be transparent when we can, as transparent as we can be, because people do have those expectations.
Well,
So, but I would also argue this, that when we have a critical incident, okay, you don't sit there and get a bunch of people from the community to say, hey, this surgeon, the person died on the operating table. I want you to watch the video of the surgery and tell me if he did the right thing. No, you get other surgeons to go in there and critique their
they're
peers.
professionals. Absolutely.
Okay? I had a guy one time, I was searching his car, and he's like, man, you can't search my car. You ain't got probable cause. You need a search warrant to do that. I said, hey, man, time out. I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I cut hair. I'm a barber. I'm like, well, listen. I said, I'll never tell you what scissors you use when you cut hair. Don't tell me how to search this daggone car. Okay? We go to professionals because they're the ones that have been through the training. They have the experience. They have the certifications. They have the education to do those jobs. And I said this before. When I was the chief of police, if you didn't trust my judgment, okay, if you didn't believe the words coming out of you should fire me. Because you don't trust me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And they didn't
I
fire
mean, you being in an elevated position, you're hired, and it's a very visible position. I think an expectation of the citizenry is we want you to represent the best of all of us,
Yes.
and we want you to run with that ethical mindset
Yes.
because we don't want you going out to Chili's and puking in bushes. 'Cause I don't
Yes.
want to pick you up, but I think that unfortunately that's the political expectation of the office is that unfortunately that's it. We
Josh,
want you to represent the best of
Me
us.
and you should set up a
And I think that
council to
anybody
review
who's
churches.
who wants to be a chief of police has to
right.
truly understand what they're signing up for and what they're getting themselves
Right.
into.
So
It's not just about being the boss.
Exactly.
There's
we are going to get into my favorite when we get right back.
your face.
Ignore the liberal media. You're listening to vinegar-based, common sense, conservative talk radio in Eastern North Carolina. Welcome back to the Carolina Cabinet.
And welcome back to the cabinet. I'm here with Pastor Josh, Miss Carrie J,
Yes, sir.
Bishop. He
I
doesn't
look
want to
good
be
in
late
this
for
camera.
curfew. And
Ooh.
Chief Braden. So welcome everybody back.
Braden.
So this just in, Carrie, we just got an
Breaking
update
news.
from Fayetteville City Council special meeting.
Yes, they voted 7-2 to adopt the Charlotte ordinance
Okay.
for youth curfew.
Do you have a list of who voted against? Who were the two?
I'm waiting for that.
Waiting for that?
information.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we can come back to that in a little bit. So, Chief, that's kind of like a hot button I wanted to speak with you about today. Before the show, I pretty much said that when I talk about how I felt your treatment was from City Council, they look to you as a professional and they're begging, hey, we need a solution. There's crime. Chief, do something. Do something. And then our chief went and made a presentation, and his top thing was, we need a youth curfew. And then you were mercilessly attacked, to say the least. You can handle the criticism. It wasn't like it destroyed you or anything,
Yeah.
but it was really, to me, like, it was a reminiscent to me of. Do y'all
Don't
remember?
if you do, don't if you don't.
Yeah, y'all remember like Sanderson Farms when they were trying to locate here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we pretty much took these people out to dinner and we
Wined them.
wined them and dined them,
Yep.
and then the last minute,
Yep.
not in my backyard. And then they went to the other county.
Yep.
So it's like we look to the professionals, the economic development, whatever, to make these solutions, and we have a bad history of just poo-pooing the idea. So I felt like they mistreated you, and it was kind of a pattern of just government being government, unfortunately.
I'll say this part of it. Again, based on your role, title, position, and profession, you expect. I don't expect counsel to sit there and just blindly
Blow
follow
smoke
me
up your-
into whatever decision I make. There's got to be a checks and balance to that. There, I think that I agree with the way you stated it. They asked for some suggestions on what could help or what could have some influence over the problems that we were seeing at the time, and the curfew was a recommendation based on the age of a lot of our offenders, especially in the gang-related stuff, the retaliatory type shootings.
I think it was car thefts at that time.
And car thefts. Last year we had a record number of car thefts. But yes, giving the officer the legal authority to at least remember what I said earlier about we got to encourage an officer's curiosities. We got to give them potential reasons to get out, talk with somebody to make sure everything is okay. Guess what? If everything is on the up and up, if I saw a kid walking around the food line at 11:30 at night, and I said, "Hey, that kid looks young," and I walked up to that kid, I'm like, "Hey, young man, what's going on tonight?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm just waiting on my dad. I got done with football practice, and his car broke down. This, and this. Okay. Guess what? No harm, no foul.
Yeah, you're going to keep walking.
We're good. I may do a little. Hey, let me call your dad. I can find out where he's at. Give me the number. I'll call him. Find out how far out he is.
But that's kind of quintessential community policing, though.
Exactly.
I think we were mentioning Pastor Josh. You knew the guy under the bridge.
Yep.
That Chief Braden knew. And it's like,
But-
I've
that
met-
right there. You know your regular actors.
So a cop can do that any given day of the week. So why do we need a curfew? Because our society is not that polite anymore.
Yeah.
And when I get out, I say, "Young man, how are you tonight? What are you doing out at 11:30 at night?" Guess what? I might get an FU.
Oh.
Yeah.
I might get a.
And it's going on TikTok.
You can't tell me. You can't touch me. I'm going to record what you're doing. So again, to protect our officers, we need some legal authority to have that interaction should it go awry.
Yeah.
Because if it does go awry and we don't have that, it's going to be, why were you arresting that young man?
Yeah.
But again, 9 times out of 10 is like, young man, what's going on? I'm waiting on my dad. Okay, let me give him a call. I'll find out how far out he is. It can be that simple. But as a society, we haven't let things be that simple anymore.
No.
Right.
Okay, so that's why the curfew and number 2, it holds the parents accountable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why is your kid out at 11:30? I didn't know he snuck out of the house. Well, now you know. Don't let it happen again.
Exactly.
When I see him out there again at 11:30 this weekend, I know I already talked to the parent. Okay, we got to give them some accountability to say no. And again, I tell people this because it was brought up that the county doesn't enforce their curfew. I got a call when my daughter was 15 years old because she was found out past curfew.
Yeah.
I didn't know she snuck out of the house.
There you go.
But guess what?
Now I did.
We had cameras after that.
Yeah.
And again, I know I'm not saying that every parent should go out and buy cameras, but that's what I felt I needed to do as a parent
cameras.
to hold my kid accountable of, no, you ain't going to sneak out of the house no more. And again, I think it's just a tool within the toolbox.
Right.
It's not going to sit there and drive murder rates down, but it's going to give us another tool. You can't be a good mechanic with an adjustable wrench and a pair of pliers.
It almost codifies the reason to interact with the young men and women.
Yes.
Anyway, it's like, okay, look, there's a curfew. I need to speak with you. I mean, hell, I remember in high school, a friend of mine, his dad says, "Hey, why did I get a call that your mother's car was doing 95 miles an hour down Lakewood last night?" But that was a different time.
I had that conversation with my dad.
It's like, why was your mother's car doing that? But
Dag, Peter, you're bad.
I didn't say me.
Oh, was it you?
No,
it was me.
It was a friend of a friend.
It was me.
Josh,
Oh,
though.
it was
I know
a friend of a
Josh was
friend.
that guy. So when you formulated because again, they've now revisited it 2 years later.
Yeah.
Is it 2 years or is it just one?
It's about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was the chief for about 6 or 8 months during the summertime is when we really had that spate of violence.
Okay. So when you came up to like assemble that and cobble it together, were you already working with council or city management to kind of guide your thought process, or did you just do it in a vacuum and then get attacked for it? I mean, there had to be some kind of...
No, the question was asked. What are some options we have to help deal with some of the violence that we're seeing across the city?
Okay.
And again, I lobbed that softball, and one or two of them try to knock home runs with it.
Yeah. Well, so I think I responded that the curfew this time should be dead on arrival. We've already visited it. We've already established constitutional issues, whatever else. But the way that Chief is positing it is that it's one more tool, and it's a reason to say, young man or young lady, what can you do? Because like you said, some of the interactions are F you and can't touch me, and because we have a society that is getting away from... I'm sorry. I'm going to say this. Church enrollment is down, and this stuff has gone up.
Yep.
I don't need to be...
They took prayer out of schools, and kids went crazy.
Look, and what I was saying earlier about the homeless and the problems being similar, it's a matter of society and the heart.
Yeah.
It's not just they want to be thugged out.
And it boils down to this, when you talk about the kids in church and enrollment in church, okay, even if they're not going to, it's still the parents' responsibility to teach their kids right from wrong. It's still the parents' responsibility to make sure they're productive members of our society, okay?
If it's not church, it's sports.
Yeah.
Or it's some
but you know
other
what?
thing they're involved in.
But here's what I tell people all the time. There's a scripture. The Bible says this. The Bible. I hear a lot of people, especially a lot of Christians, say the Bible says, "Raise up a child in the ways in which you." That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says to train up a child in the way in which he should go. That when he is old, he will not depart. Goes back to that parental accountability and responsibility part. My job as a parent is not just to raise my kid and say, "Oh, find your own way." My job is to train you in the way that I believe your life needs to go, so that when you are older, you stick to that path. You may stray a little, but there's always a hook in you to draw you back. So that parental responsibility is paramount. It is integral in dealing with these issues. I laugh about the cameras because I have cameras in the house, outside the house, and I have my system where when I lock my house, if you turn my alarm off, all the lights come on. My bedroom lights, everything. So I know, I'm yelling, who's unlocked the door? Oh, I'm going to take out the trash. All right, hurry up, back in. And some people say, oh, that's just too much. No, I'm parenting my children. I am, even though they are now 16 and 14, I'm not leaving them to their own devices because children unchecked cause a lot of problems.
So let me ask you this. If we went to the average homeowner and said, listen, we want you to make sure that your house is as safe as possible. We're going to give you
give me a number,
a blank check.
Yes, Lord.
Where you can go down and get whatever you think you need to make your house secure. What do you think would be in people's shopping carts when they got
TV,
ammo?
Well,
camo.
Ammo.
I depends on what neighborhood you're in, because some people come back with
I guarantee you they're going to get a security system that has cameras.
Right.
That's going to have motion activation on it. That's going to have face locking ID on it. So when they see a face, it locks in on their face. All those. Listen, there's so much technology out there.
I got all that.
Okay. Exactly. But when we talk about, we want cameras for the city that have facial recognition so we can sit there and analyze someone when they get caught doing it. Okay, that's too far. That's too much. That's too much AI. But if it was your personal house, guess what? You would buy it and you would have it on there.
Yep.
And again, there's a reason we don't have cameras that belong to the city of Fayetteville that are viewed through the police department in neighborhoods. We have them on main intersections. We have them up in our business district. We have them.
Do you have them back from the hurricane? Because didn't we lose a bunch of them?
We pretty much replaced all of those.
Did you? Okay.
But the key point is we're not trying to intrude on people's personal lives. But if there is a murder within a neighborhood and they had to come out to get on Rayford Road at some point in time.
Right.
Guess what? If I know the murder occurred at approximately 3 a.m., I will pull video of cars between 2:30 and 3:30.
Right.
Odds are my suspect is probably going to be in one of those videos.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, it's not about us trying to invade on people's privacy, but it gives us a tool to solve a crime.
Are you talking about ShotSpotter? Because it seems like that
No,
ShotSpotter falls
he's
into...
He's just talking about regular
I know, because that's where the Fourth Amendment violations and everything people allege, and because you're listening, it's like, look, we just want better tools to direct our resources.
But here's the thing, though. Like, after 9/11, we forfeited all that lovely... I mean, and not essentially, but we didn't know it.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know about the Patriot Act.
Like, we didn't know what we were forfeiting when
Right.
we forfeited it, right? But we truly
Typical.
did.
So do you think we really have a grasp now, and that's why we're scared
No,
to
we
give the
don't.
police
No,
access?
because here's
or-
the thing: is that the Patriot Act is still alive and well, and it allows for the surveillance technology that
Intrusions.
Chief is talking about. And the thing is that now, your neighbor, you may not want to share your camera, but your neighbor can tell the city
and
of
that was
Fayetteville,
mentioned tonight
hey,
about the FUSIS
I
system.
want to
Yeah.
share my camera. The
Yeah.
business that's down the street, they may want to share their camera. So now
Yep.
that footage is out there.
Well, but
and
you're
you
also
have-
in the public view. You have no expectation of privacy when you're on the sidewalk or you're in your
But you-
neighborhood.
So think about this
Go
too
ahead.
as well. If you go back to the 1970s, some of the most damning evidence you could get against somebody was their fingerprint at a crime scene.
Yes.
Okay, the most damning evidence you can get against somebody in 2025 is them on video at your crime
Yeah.
scene. Okay. Again,
wasn't me.
it doesn't matter whether you got a confession or not. It's you have the evidence to
Right.
back that confession up now. Okay.
Now, Carrie said something, Chief. I want to see if I got her right, because I know when I was the director at the lodge, there's a lot of crime over there by the lodge. So what we did was I guess it's the program that Peter mentioned, where we gave the police department access to our cameras that were facing the streets.
Yep.
Can homeowners do the same thing and say, yeah, you guys can tap in to my camera system and
So again, is it possible technology-wise? Yes. But no, because I, as the chief of police, wouldn't allow you to give me access to your camera, because I don't want you to have the capability to come back and saying,
You were invading other.
you
privacy.
saw my kids get out of the shower.
Yeah.
yeah, I was about to say, you saw me in my backyard early and just
Yeah.
drawers.
He's going to put that on OnlyFans.
Again, there's too many ways that can backfire on an individual.
So how does FUSIS work?
So
then?
the way FUSIS works is you register with us, tell us, hey, I have a security
have a
system,
camera.
I have 10 cameras on my house, and when I pop up the FUSIS system, and let's say I have a homicide in a neighborhood, and I'm trying to look what my suspect vehicle could be, I look on there and I have 5 houses that are highlighted that they have video. Now, instead of me having to go door to door and knock, I can go to those 5 houses and say, hey, you're registered with FUSIS. We had an incident within the neighborhood last night. Would you mind giving us access to camera
DVR.
footage from
Yeah.
2:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the morning?
So it's not okay. So you guys don't even log in remotely. Like this is
no.
It just basically FUSIS is a system to catalog.
Now
where the cameras
FUSIS does have the capability.
I thought it did.
Where like with Cross Creek
are. It
Mall.
worked with ring cameras. I thought.
No, not Ring cameras, but I could sit there. What we call as a hub.
Okay.
So I could put a hub within your system. Okay, and we're looking at major. Retail, the mall. We're looking at Freedom Town Center, places like that, that have a multitude of cameras where we could ask them to say, okay, would you mind sharing? Because that's all public access stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The odds are this: is you can't go out of your house and go anywhere in this town and not be caught on a video somewhere.
Right.
Now, this is the finding the needle in the haystack moment. Is you're going to be caught on video, but who's going to watch all that video to find you?
Right.
That's where AI and some of the conversations tonight were. We don't like artificial intelligence. Again, I can see artificial intelligence, how it could be detrimental. I think I came to the chamber and talked about it.
You were also on the
Kathy's,
Justice
Yeah.
Will Prevail
Yeah.
panel.
Yeah.
But and again, evil in inanimate things is because some human has been put that evil into
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
But if I sit there and I say, okay, yes, we had a homicide at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I want to scan all video between 2:30 and 3:30 along the corridor of Rayford Road, looking for a red Nissan Sentra. How many cameras do you think are on the length of Rayford Road?
A few.
So for me to sit there and assign a detective to sit there, okay, we got an hour's worth of video. I got 100 people that have contributed video to that.
100 hours.
That's 100 hours. That's 2.5 weeks of them just doing nothing but watching video, trying to find a red car.
Yep.
Where I could sit there and put that video into a system that could run it through technology, AI-based program saying, I need to locate a red Nissan Sentra. And that video is scanned, and within 30 minutes it pops out, this is every
Here's
red
5
Nissan
places.
Sentra.
Yeah, right.
That is
and
all.
unfortunately, I've been on that side as a shop owner of your detectives being in my store, hey, we need evidence of, there was a murder down the street, so we need to look. So I've actually sat with your detectives and done that. It's, and that's a crappy call to get, let me tell you. So whenever you see City of Fayetteville police pop up on your phone, it's like, oh, this is not good.
One of the things I try to bring back, especially to our young officers, and we sort of lost it in the policing profession, post-COVID, post-George Floyd, post, all the things that happened in the 2020s. Mm-hmm. There's urgency in a lot of the things that we do. There's certain things that can't wait till tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that I told, that we're going to have to pay overtime to do. Mm-hmm. You don't get to sit there and work it all the way up to, I know who did it, I know why they did it, I know that, and we'll come back and we'll take out warrants tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We are in a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week business where perceptions are everything. We talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. We got to put urgency back into some of our policing efforts. There's a lot of things that if I could go back and do different, I probably would. But getting back to the basics in policing, I think, is going to be key for the success of future police leaders. Mm-hmm. So we're so worried about the perceptions of, did I use force, did I not use force? Mm-hmm. There shouldn't ever be a video of a cop getting cussed out for 10 minutes on the side of the road. In my opinion, there should never be a video of a cop getting cussed out that lasts more than probably about 2 minutes.
Or the cop that I posted on TikTok where they were arguing with the kids and the girl grabbed the female cop by the hand, drug her, and the other partner is trying to go get her and they're hitting him. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there like, send everybody to jail, even the unborn kids.
If I run for office again, I promise you this, I'm going to propose some kind of ordinance or legislation that says after 5 minutes of arguing on the road, you can take that, you're going to turn the cameras off. You are going to remove that person from the car, and then the cameras can come back on when EMS is there responding to them getting. We lost. Hang on. Let me get back on.
Peter.
Okay.
Proponent for leaving the camera running because, again,
But you're trying to you want to make sure that it's covered.
Let me ask you, Miss Carrie, how long are you going to get cussed out before you walk away from a situation?
Yep.
Are you going to sit there for 10 minutes?
How much do you expect people to take?
But I don't even think I can even be cussed out for.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of times where cops don't have the opportunity where they say, I'm just going to walk away from this, because then we've rewarded that petulant behavior.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now the next time they get stopped by the cops, they're going to do it again.
They're going to do it again, and then that person may escalate. It may be a different type of force.
They're going to say they're more
that is given, and then at the end of the day, I mean, depending on where you are and what county and state that you're in, that could be about 4 or 5 charges.
Mm-hmm. Now, and again, I'm not a proponent of, excessive force.
Right.
Okay. I'm a proponent of enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, when we talk about getting back to basics, I've asked cops before, why am I stopping and detaining somebody that I have no intention on arresting? If you didn't intend on arresting them for potential violation or citing them for a potential violation, why did you even pull them over?
Yeah,
right.
I think a warning comes when I pulled you over for a citable or an arrestable offense, and you give me a good reason as to why you were doing what you were doing.
Or be apologetic,
yes.
at least.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, at least acknowledge
if you were speeding.
Yeah.
Okay, My kid has locked themselves out of the house. I'm trying to get home to get her back into the house.
My kids
My
are
pizza
hungry.
delivery's late. I've got to go.
Late.
That one doesn't.
But
work
again,
yet.
that took me from a ticket down to okay. I understand you're worried about your kid, but drive safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you've got the warning.
What about if I pull myself over?
You pull yourself over?
Yeah, I was coming down the road speeding, but the kids were hungry, and I was speeding. I know I was speeding. I was doing like 70, and I saw the. I saw him off on the left side.
I've done that.
And before he could put his lights on, I just pulled on over. And then when he got behind me, I said, "I knew you was coming." He said, "Why were you speeding?" I said, "The kids are hungry." He was like, "Just do me a favor, slow down." I said, "No problem, thank you." And I left, but I was like, "He about to get me. Let me go on, stop, pull over."
So
Ain't no need to make this long.
Wait.
What?
Wait.
You almost
Talk
went
to
to
me,
jail?
Carrie.
No, I didn't. No. Hopefully. Okay.
Lord,
right,
what you
I think
do?
I'm good.
She knocking
All
on
right.
wood.
So, no, but Chief Braden, you keep on saying back to basics.
Yep.
And like earlier when you were talking, and he was saying, right is right and wrong is wrong,
Right.
and those are the things that we got to get back to, right? And so what popped in my head was the song, all we need is love.
Oh my
Love.
God.
Love is all we
We've
need.
been at a Bernie Sanders
No,
rally.
because so here's the thing, right? And then we were talking about everything, and Peter mentioned thugs, and then I think you mentioned thugs.
What's
Not,
up
like
with this?
not in a bad way, not in a bad way.
Bad actors.
But-
okay.
Is he a good thug?
No, but the
Is there such a
acronym.
thing?
So when they came out with the movie Thug Life,
Mhm.
the acronym was the hate you give little infants, everyone.
Okay.
So that's the whole thing. That's why I'm saying that
Never
all
saw
we
that
need
one.
is love.
No, missed that
Because
one.
love is the opposite of hate.
Yep.
If we bring love back into the community and we start looking at the humanity of everything and we see things as right as right
We love
and
you,
wrong as
Carrie.
wrong.
We love you.
And that's, again, perceptions are everything. You know, I think as a profession, you know, the damage that was done during the George Floyd and several incidents that occurred, and, you know, we never fully recovered from that, okay? You can be polite and courteous and still put someone in handcuffs, okay? I tell people this, the best de-escalation training for a cop is proper use of force training, okay? We have so many cops that are scared to use force, not confident enough to use force. You know, no, we have to give proper use of force training, okay? And they tore me up over this when I was a chief because I used this explanation one time. And see, I grew up in the Rodney King era,
Yeah.
okay?
You're too young.
Well, can't we all just get along?
And
Yeah.
I
It is.
and I
Can
said
we
this
all just
about
get along?
and I said this about the
1994.
Rodney King incident, okay? The cops had every right to pull Rodney King over that night, okay? Where did they mess up? They messed up because they didn't know when to stop using force.
Right.
They messed up because they had 7 people with batons beating this dude
Beating
down in
him.
the street.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can tell you this. If you hit me once with a baton, I'm going to do what you told me to do.
Just threaten me with the baton.
Unless you're strung out on
But
crack.
but you hit me the second time and the third time, and I'm doing what you told me to do. Guess what? I got to run now because me doing what you told me to do is not going to make you stop hitting me.
Yeah.
So that's why my kids do it.
Yes, exactly. By the
So
time you get
when
to
you
the
pop
right-
a boy, good time.
yes, and
yeah,
leave them alone.
that's not a fun time.
But again, you know, I think proper use of force
Right.
training is key. There was a shootout in San Francisco I used a lot when I taught at the academy for almost 20 years. They shot an individual and all 7 cops shot the guy.
Okay.
Okay.
A firing
Why
squad.
do we have 7 cops lined up in a circle around? Why are some of those cops making it safe, pushing some of those pedestrians back where we're not videotaping it? Why is someone not looking for someone to break the interior of the line? Why didn't we have one cop, one cover, one concealment? You know, the things we train. Because we don't do proper use of force training. Okay? So the best way to sit there and reduce liability within your police department, the best way to reduce liability for your city is to properly train your cops in the use of force. To be prepared to know that, okay, no, this merits me to use a taser.
How much do you think it's on the young rookie's mind of the qualified immunity argument that came up? You know, we had the shooting, and then city council wanted to throw that around like a football of not.
Again, people don't know what it is. Okay, we're the only people within the criminal justice profession that have qualified immunity. You want to know why? Because everyone else has absolute immunity.
Tell us the difference.
Yeah.
So the difference is in the 2 words. I got to qualify that my actions were justified. And if I can show that the qualified that they were justified, then I will get that immunity. Guess what? Magistrate, absolute immunity. Prosecutors, absolute immunity.
So
Cops are the only ones that have qualified immunity. They talk like we got the gift from God.
I think they
Qualified
focus.
immunity.
They focus.
yeah, you're
on
not
the
exactly
immunity
Wyatt Earp
part.
out here. You have to
Yeah.
prove
Yes.
why. Yeah.
They're focused
So
on the immunity word.
We are
instead of
qualified to receive that immunity because someone has reviewed our actions and say they were proper. We didn't
Right.
violate anything that wasn't already a withstanding judgment or
So was
opinion
it
on.
qualified immunity they were trying not to back, or was it just paying insurance claims on your cops' behalf at that point?
So
I don't want to get into the actual case. I just in general.
There's a couple different
here.
things out there. Again, you got to accept that you could be totally justified in what you do out there and still get sued.
Right.
You know, we're in a very litigious society, and based on that, I think is why we have a lot of people that will make those claims. Okay, It doesn't matter whether you were right or wrong. You better expect if you get an officer-involved shooting, you're going to get sued. Okay, that's just the nature of the
animal,
beast
yeah.
at this point in time. Is it right? You know, and what they look at is
Well,
when the
anybody
officers
can
get
sue
those,
you, but not everybody can win.
Exactly.
So that's the thing.
So the first thing they look at when you get that lawsuit against you, okay, should this be kicked out for summary judgment, saying no, there's nothing wrong here, or if it does make it through, does the officer have qualified immunity in this case? Okay, and generally to get qualified immunity, you have to show that you did the right things for the right reasons. You didn't violate any withstanding
But
laws.
that's what like the SBI would come in and look at and give you that immunity. Or
No, a judge gives you qualified immunity.
Okay.
That during that judicial process.
Okay.
So no, SBI can't give you qualified immunity. They can say whether to prosecute or not.
Okay.
Okay, but again, we're looking at you get your qualified immunity in most of your civil cases, not your criminal cases. So you know, that's why you see so many officers that are cleared and there's never a criminal case brought against them. But during the civil case, they get their qualified immunity.
Yeah, I got you.
So is that like what?
It's like being found innocent.
If there's an officer-involved shooting, is that one of the reasons why that officer? I guess I don't know how we do it here. The weapon is taken. The officer is put on administrative duty while the investigation is going on. Is that during that time? Are you looking at the qualified immunity part?
No. So you know, for me, I had a couple. I dealt with several officer-involved shootings during my tenure as chief. There's been chiefs that wouldn't let you come back to work until the trial was done.
Okay.
Guess what? You're going to have a cop employed for 3, 4, 5 years, and they can't come back to work. Okay? No, when we look at this, you know, you got to look at, you know, we're cops. We know when we see something that's messed up. Me as the chief of police, if I watched the video and I saw something that caused me great concern, guess what? You're not coming back to work. We're waiting for another opinion on this. We're waiting for the SBI to come back. We're waiting for the grand jury to convene. We're waiting for something. If I watched it and I was 100% okay, that's my job, right? To review the videos and make determinations on whether officers acted appropriately or not. If I was okay with what I saw, and I could get it through legal and say, okay, are you good with what you saw? I've had people back to work within 6 months.
Okay. Now, can an officer say, like you say, okay, well, you can come back 6 months, and that officer say, I'm not ready to come back yet?
Yes. So one of the things I do is well, I did, because like I said, I had several. You know, I had one the last month I was here, right off Scarborough Road. You know, the first couple days you just sit home to decompress. Okay, I'm not beating your door down. I'm not asking you to write supplements. I'm looking at your videos that you had based on the incident. Blah 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 blah. Then we set up a time for you to come in and speak with our internal affairs. That's when you'll give your official statement. You know, if you need to speak with the counselor before then, you know, anything like that, you can do all those things. But at some point in time, I got to get an official statement from you. Okay, after that official statement, after all the body cameras reviewed, everything, our internal affairs, while the SBI is doing their criminal investigation, was there any criminal violations, our internal investigators will bring it to us. I've already watched the video. We talk about urgency. If I had an officer-involved shooting, I watch the video that night. I don't say, okay, I'll get it on Monday. No, I come in and I watch it that night. That way I can be transparent with the public and say, I, the chief of police, have reviewed the videos, and this was a good shoot, or the officer was fired upon first. Subject came out of the front door, back door with a gun. You know, those are things that I try to give that you generally don't get from a lot of leaders of police agencies. No, the subject came out the back door and fired upon the officers. Why can I say that? Because I saw it on video.
There you go.
The video don't lie.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it's on video, then I'm confident enough to tell the public that to ease some of those worries of, is this another instance of misconduct? Is this another instance of excessive force?
So,
and as leaders, we got to be bold enough to do that, to say, no, this is the right thing to put out for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So one last thing I wanted to bring up was the police get attacked a lot for, you know, we can't police our way out of these problems we have with the youth and other social issues, but the number of murders is really disconcerting for a lot of people in Fayetteville. And nobody talks about, though, are y'all good at solving these things? So, I kind of prepped you before the show. I said, look, because I know you're going to come with receipts, and you just had, because when you retired, you were like, they just put out the report from your last quarter, so we have fresh numbers.
Yep.
So, how good is the Fayetteville Police Department at solving these murders?
So again, up to March when I left, there was I think we were sitting around 15, I think, at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one that was outstanding that we hadn't made an arrest on. The previous year, at the close of the year, I think we had all but one arrest made there. And remember, when you get a homicide that occurs in December, you may be well on your way to solving that case. It's just, you got to dot your I's, cross your T's, and do those things.
That you're reporting.
Yes, and it crosses that quarter. On average, if you go back historically, the Fayetteville Police Department has been great at homicide investigations.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple off years where we dip down to the 70%, 80% mark, but we're consistently above 90% to 100% in solvability of homicides. My entire time as chief, we had staffing shortages.
Mm-hmm.
The one unit that remained fully staffed the entire 2 years that I was the chief of police was the homicide unit.
Right.
The first year I had the 52 homicides, being the boss, you have to figure out which bills you have to pay first. Guess what? Homicide was one of those, because that's what we're judged on when it comes to violent crime. Again, the past 2 lowest years of violent crime in the past decade, but people focused on the homicides.
Okay, so didn't you say, you were talking about violent crimes earlier, you threw out a number, I think we solved 60%, but you said national was only like 27?
So when we look at things like, and again, there's different instances of, you talk about aggravated assaults. Yes, we're consistently in that 60%.
What's an aggravated assault? Bishop, keep talking in my ear.
So I shoot you, but I didn't kill you.
Okay, got you. Right. I love you, Bishop. It's all right, bro.
Slapped you but didn't break your jaw.
No, again, homicide is always going to be the yardstick by which we're measured.
Okay. That's what I mean. See, it gets all the glory, and you guys are still solving other cases at above average national average rates.
And I told you I was part of several startup units. When we did the gun violence task force, that's where I really placed urgency as one of the things that really mattered on the top of my list. I may know who shot somebody, but I can't wait till Monday to go get them in custody.
Right.
Urgency says, no, we're gonna make people think that you can't get away with shooting somebody. They're going to be picking you up that night.
Right.
We got to have that frame of mind of, no, we're going to get you. So I remember one night the homicide unit, we knew who their suspect was. And I worked for a plainclothes unit, did street crimes, the gun and gang violence. And they had a homicide, and I remember the homicide sergeant came to me one night and said, hey, we just dropped warrants on so-and-so. He said, do I got time to go home and take a shower?
Jesus.
Because he knew that we were already tracking his suspect, and we were going to have him in custody as soon as they dropped those warrants.
Yeah.
And we've been up for 2 days. Give me time to go home and take a shower. I was proud that moment.
Did you let him get a shower?
Did you let him wash?
I was proud that moment where they knew that we were going to be on it and have their people picked up.
Yeah.
We don't need no funky justice.
But again, I think that it's key for law enforcement to place that sense of urgency on the things that you're going to be judged upon.
Yeah.
If people didn't care about murders and all they cared, speeders.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing when you go to a community watch meeting, they're going to tell you about speeders.
All the speeders. Yeah.
Speeder Peter.
So guess what?
Pirates.
That goes to the top of your list because that's what people put priority on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the expectations or the code of conduct placed on you based on your role, title, position. The expectations is I'm going to deal with speeders and I'm going to keep homicides in check. So you got to devote the time, the energy, and the urgency to those things.
I'd like you to get murderous Maurice first before the speeders, okay?
Yeah, but I think you
Carrie.
could actually say that actually helps changing the mindset of not just the criminal, but the overall community when you start to see that, yes, this person was, this homicide occurred. However, within 72 hours, there's been an update where someone has been, has been arrested.
Yeah.
For the same thing.
The one that really stands out to me, Zion Gibbs. Last 4th of July,
Yep.
He was a young man, 7, 8 years old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Drive-by, shot, killed. I, as the chief of police, and I tell this story because his mother had great concerns. Are we doing our job? And I had to call her a couple times and reassure her. Do you want me to be fast or you want me to be good?
Right.
Okay. I got what I know and I got what I can prove. Let me work it so I can prove it. And again, I won't even pretend to fathom what it's like to lose a child. But as the chief of police, I had to constantly reassure her, no, we haven't forgot about Zion Gibbs. No, we're gonna get them. Okay, and again, she had that expectation, and we had to be there and provide her with the answers that she needed.
Right.
Not just because she wanted, but she needed those things. And again, it's my job as a chief to be that buffer between the community and the cops that are doing the job out there. But again, that's the expectation. Especially when innocent kids are shot and killed.
Absolutely.
I got a question for you real quick, Chief, because I know Peter going to wrap us in a minute. It's on a softer note. You've retired within the last month and a half, roughly. And in March, you retired. Now
March 31st.
March 31st. So you just over a month.
Just over a month.
That you've been
He
retired.
retired in heels.
We're not
Sorry,
going
my
there.
bad.
What do you miss about it the most? And I would say, what do you not miss about it? I know when I retired from the Army, I did not miss waking up at 4:30 for formation. I did not miss having to run 2 miles every morning. I did miss the camaraderie,
Yes.
the brotherhood, that unit life. I miss that. So when you look at, was it 30 years? 30 years on the force, most of that time with Fayetteville PD, you're driving down the road, you see a Fayetteville PD car go by. What jumps in your head? What do you miss? What has retirement been like for you these last 30 days or so?
So I made it a point. I've had a couple of people reach out to me, just check on me and stuff like that. But I made it a point that I wasn't going to come down to the PD every day. I was going to have that clean break from that lifestyle because that's what I needed to do. I've been to a couple council meetings. I've been to a couple community events. I'm trying to stay involved, but I had to break myself from driving, getting the routine of my life of getting in the car in the morning and driving to 433 Chase Street, getting out of my car, parking in my spot, walking up to the second floor, going to my office and checking my emails. So I can tell you that I don't miss the emails. But yes, you're 100% right. You're going to miss the camaraderie. I still have friends on the Fayetteville Police Department. You don't spend somewhere for almost 30 years and not have friends. You don't spend somewhere 30 years and not have enemies either.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But what do I miss the most? I think if you're a true police officer, you got to have a little chaos in your life. You got to have something to work on, something to solve, a problem, a riddle, something that everyone else scratching their head so you can say, I got this, watch this. It has to have a little bit of stress involved.
Yeah.
And that's what I miss. I miss the challenge of the job. Again, I don't mind arguing. I'll argue with anybody. You want to argue about something? We can argue. I'll argue with you even when I agree with you. Just give you a counter.
Sounds like me.
A counter to your argument. But so I did enjoy those things. Okay. I didn't look at it as, well, they're dumb. No, I looked at it as, well, I got to do a better job proving my point.
I need to get there because I'm stopping sometimes. But they just
well, guess what? And to me, being a good cop, there are so many parallels with being a good parent.
Yeah.
Being a good leader, there are so many parallels with being a good parent.
Yeah.
And I'm an analogy guy. I had to sit down with some of our supervisors. I was like, listen. Do you sit down and do you help your kid that gets straight A's with their homework, or do you help the one that's a B and C student? Because what I found is a lot of supervisors, they'd hang out with the rock stars on the shift just because they enjoyed what they were doing.
The other ones require work.
Yeah, the other ones just sitting around, it was like, what? No, and I saw it was a podcast or a YouTube or something where they talk about, deal with the rocks, not the rock stars.
Yeah.
we got to pay attention to the things that need us.
Yeah.
And when people talk about why are the cops always on this area of town? I'm not going to say a road or a neighborhood of that.
Well,
Why don't? Because they're the ones that need us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
right.
the calls and service are
Absolutely.
coming from.
Okay.
And-
You don't want your cops wasting their time driving around in a neighborhood that has 0 calls for service and 0 problems.
Yeah.
And now I'm not sure if this program came out under your leadership as
Your
chief.
chiefness.
Under your chiefness, yes.
Your
I wanted to use a big word and I couldn't find one.
Chiefdom.
Yes. But Faith in Action is one of the proactive
Yes.
programs that the police department
It
has.
seems like it's been around a while, hasn't it?
Nope.
No?
That was a brand new
Was
Braden
that
invention.
a Braden
It was a
invention?
Braden-
Okay,
Braden
Braden,
invention.
Braden branded.
So
Braden
what
branded Faith in Action.
Yes, and again, you're talking about one of the things I'm most proud of, and it's not that because it was mine; it's because of how successful it became.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was, I'll give Chief Hawkins her credit. She had what she called her Faith Forum, where she had all the faith members of the community. We'd go and we'd do like a training session for different churches throughout the community. And I'd been with her for her entire time as her chief. I was her chief of staff for almost 3 years. And we saw the same people at different trainings. I was like, there's got to be something more we can do. There's got to be a way to engage more people. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a way to not just engage our faith community, but have our faith community engage our community.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with the idea of, well, I didn't come up with it by myself. We have our chaplain program, and Sergeant Caldwell, she oversees that. But I sparked the idea of all of these churches, they'll go and they'll help build a school in Central America. They'll go over to Africa and help dig wells. What if we did a mission in our own backyard? Because there's crises that are going on in our own backyard. Mm-hmm. And what we really utilized was the overdose deaths. I had lead, a former captain, went to work with harm reduction. He really wanted to get incorporated back with the police department and wanted to work with us there. So the initial Faith in Action strategy was, I can't just deal with issues of addiction, but who has addiction counselors? Do some churches have addiction counselors? Do some churches have family counselors? Mm-hmm. Okay, if I have domestic violence issues, if I have addiction issues, if I have, churches have all kinds of counselors attached to them. So let's go in and let's have a day of giving back to an area where we're having a problem. And we picked some of the areas of the city where we had the most incidents of overdose deaths. And we said we weren't just going to go in there and give them Narcan. We're going to go in there and see what food insecurities they have. We're going to see what educational, what programs can we bring in that can benefit them. And guess what? It was spearheaded, and it was one of our events where we had more people who weren't cops going and participating than we had actual cops. There's so many times when we have events that the cops outnumber the community.
Yeah.
But no, just really engaging with our faith-based community and getting people to come up. Hey, if you put a hot dog or a hamburger on a grill, somon's going to come by and say, "Hey, what's going on right here?"
I'll be there.
So, but yes,
Welcome to the South.
Yeah,
But
and it wasn't just church. Like it was,
No.
it's nonprofits.
yes,
And anyone that pretty much has a heart for the community.
Yep.
So it's a way that the community can come down, and then they can realize that the officer is not always there to arrest me.
Right.
They're
It's-
actually there to take care of me as
community
well.
policing, and I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that's an ideal vehicle. So, final thought, Chief Braden. So, what's next for Kem Braden? And are you just going to sit and retire and just come on the radio show and hang out a little bit?
Well, I told you I had
I'll see you at baseball once in a while.
I
maybe.
told you I got an Amazon addiction, so
Okay,
I got to
okay.
support my habits.
Okay.
I feel like I'm young. Again,
No, you are young because you're close to my age, so you can't be claiming old.
and I can tell you this. One of my biggest deciding factors for retiring was, the death of Captain Collins. I want to ensure that I had something set aside for my family. All the years of service that I put in for the city of Fayetteville, and there's other ways for me to give back and to fulfill what I need as an individual. There's other opportunities out there. I know I'll be doing something. I'm just going to enjoy the time I have right now to go out, do some yard work, and pressure wash the house, and maybe play around the golf here or there. But if you ask my wife, I constantly have to be doing something. So I'm
You
sure
need input.
I'm sure in
So
the near
he's not going to
future.
be far, I guess, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sure in the near future that I'll have some needs out there that I'll have to get fulfilled. With doing something. I don't know exactly what that is yet, but I spent 29 years in law enforcement. That's what I know.
Look, you have value to our community, and I hope we don't lose you. And I hope that you find ways to use your network of people. Look, running for office, me and Bishop. I mean, how many people now? If something happens, people kind of start DMing you, and they're like, "Hey, what can you do?" Just because you network with people, and you're now in it. So I hope we don't lose your talent. And
Chief, you have my permission as a fellow retiree to drive slow. You ain't got the speed for nobody. Let them go around, do what I do. Stick your hand out the window and wave them
through.
Just come on.
Didn't Chief just say that he just got pulled over there?
He just got pulled over.
That's why I'm
no.
You got insider information.
And I got beef
that was
with
the
him.
Gates Ford. That was the Gates Ford tag thing. That was
I was trying to get into the golf.
But drive slow. 5 miles under the speed limit, intentionally.
My dear cabinet.
Well, these retirement credentials got to be good for something. Okay?
Got to use that badge. So I want to say a thank you to our on-air cabinet members, Pastor Joshua Goodman,
Yes, sir.
Miss Carrie J.
Hey.
J. Antoine Bishop Miner.
Here.
Good to see you. And
You as well.
Chief Braden, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was a real pleasure to have you here. So to
We
our
need
audience, I
breakfast
hope you do us a favor and take time this week to visit one of our commercial sponsors. Let them know you heard their message right here on the Carolina Cabinet. If you do somehow miss an episode of our top-rated show, you can find us on your favorite podcast broadcaster, Apple, Spotify, Google, Audible. We're kind of everywhere, so just find us. So look for us online at thecarolinacabinet.com. You can find all our videos and links. Thanks again for tuning in this morning. Until next time, we are
The
Carolina Cabinet.
Peace out.